So this webinar is like a taster session for masterclasses that are on. Paul, you've been on one of the masterclasses previously around cybersecurity. This is more around moving your business to the cloud for better efficiency and resilience, and ultimately how you can drive better profit. So I prepared some slides. Ideally, I'd like to discuss a couple of questions around them, but I can also just go through them as well. So I think just to sort of jump straight in, really, just jump in. So what we're going to be discussing today is how we can save administration time, improve business processes and efficiency, also improve competitiveness by shortening lead times, managing growth, and ultimately want to make our employees happier by making day-to-day tasks easier and identifying new ways of doing things differently is one of the main areas that we're going to be looking at. So a bit of a background on me. I run a business called Think Cloud. I'm the co-founder, and I specialise in what I would call technology evangelism, in terms of I know enough about a lot of bits of technology and how we can bring it together to get a better impact, for a business, and ultimately that is allowing us to generate more income and save time. Outside of that, I also work alongside Andy's Man Club, and I'm also work on the Public Health England Task and Finish group. But again, the work that I do across these organisations is no different in terms of helping use technology to save time and generate more income across their sort of their business models. So I'm a real big fan of Peter Drucker. I don't know if anyone's heard of Peter Drucker, but he has some great quotes. I've got two main quotes of his today, really, and this is one of the first ones I'm going to share. And what Peter Drucker says is businesses only have two functions. One's marketing and innovation. And to sort of dig a bit more on that, when you think about what he's saying there, is what we've got to start thinking about when we're looking at our business models now. Our customers buy from us, and they already expect that our product's going to be brilliant. They already expect that our product's going to wow them. So what he talks about more on that is having a great product is an absolute given. It's a must. It has to be in the modern world. And then what he talks about is we continually need to innovate that product and then shout about it for our marketing. But I always like to sort of start with that when we start thinking about the cloud, because moving your business to the cloud opens up possibilities where you can change your business model, change the way you deliver your services, and ultimately then we need to shout about it. So just taking a sort of look back in history, again, Henry Ford, when he looked at his business model, he said if he had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. So he produced the Ford Model T and completely disrupted the traditional model of which was horse and carts. And when you roll that forward and you look at that with a more modern digital enabled business, when we look at Tesla, I was just reviewing, and then in Tesla's Autonomy Day in 2020, Elon Musk mentioned this on the call. The fundamental message that consumers should be taking from today is that it's financially insane to buy anything other than a Tesla. It would be like owning a horse in 3 years. Fine if you want to own a horse, but you should go into it with that expectation. If you buy a car that does not have the hardware to necessary full self-driving, it's like buying a horse. And the only car that has the hardware necessary for full self-driving is a Tesla, Elon Musk. So when you look at what Elon's saying there, and look at his business model, he has completely disrupted the automobile industry. And without understanding the customer journey and using cloud technology, it would not be possible. And when we talk about disrupting that model, what he's done is he looked at the cost of running a vehicle. So traditionally it was 47p a mile all in, worked out the average miles people drive per year, worked into the overall cost of ownership. And then his big vision, what he's working towards, is a Tesla ride sharing app. So the cars will be able to autonomously go out as taxis, pick people up, and ultimately disrupt the model, because what he's then saying is the current cost a minute for a vehicle is 47p. The average cost for a ride sharing app is £1.50 to £1.30. So then he's saying he can disrupt the business model by allowing you to have a robo-taxi where you can be delivering that for 13p a mile. So which is just absolutely insane. So there's an exercise that I want us to look at, and to do it, whenever we move a business to the cloud, it's an exercise that I always run with organizations. And I think it just provides so much interest and questions of how you can use the cloud to better, to better scale your business and better drive profits and efficiencies across the customer journey. Just 1 second, I'm just going to back in. So Netflix versus Blockbuster. And I think this is a great story. When we look at Netflix versus Blockbuster and we look at the maturity levels of the business, Blockbuster was a massively mature business, hugely mature business. And when we look at the way that Netflix disrupted the market, I think history leaves clues, So, success leaves clues is what they say. So when we go look back and look at the journey on this, so Netflix was founded in 1997, and it was founded by Reed Hastings, and he looked at the customer journey of Blockbuster and believed that people no longer wanted to go out and buy rent DVDs. He believed that the journey was broken, and he looks at the model. And when you also look at Blockbusters, that was founded by David Cook in 1985. And when you roll that forward, at its market peak in 2004, it was generating $5 billion. And what is real striking when you look at this journey, Reed Hastings looked at the customer journey. And Paul, I'm going to call you out because I've worked with you before, so you can help me on this. But let's have a little bit of interaction. What's your favourite movie?
Oh, one of the Iron Mans, I'd say. Marvel movies. I love Marvel movies.
Fantastic. So you'll remember Blockbuster back in the day, won't you?
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So what I want you to think about, and just play this exercise out for me. What had to happen for you so you've never been to Blockbuster before in your entire life. What had to happen for you to go rent a movie on a Friday night? So the new Iron Man's just come out Friday night. It's 7:00. You've seen an advert in the local paper back then about Blockbusters. Just educate me on what steps you'd have to take to actually go rent a movie.
I remember actually doing this because I had to register there. So you had to go in, perform, give your ID in and register with Blockbuster with your address and everything. You'd then be able to rent the movie and take it home and watch it, and it'd be due back in a couple of days.
Yeah, and if we really, it's a great exercise. If Helen's listening and Ben's listening, I don't know if you can hear me, Ben, because you just jumped in. Are you there, Ben? So what a great exercise you can do, if you've got a piece of paper, and this is what we'd be doing more in the taster, in the actual masterclass that we'll be delivering. If you get a piece of paper, and in one column, I want you to write down jobs that you need to do, Paul. So jobs you need to do, and I'll help you in the background on this. So what jobs did you need to do? So if we take that back a step further, you're at home. How did you get there? How did you get to Blockbusters?
Oh, I think it would have been in the car at that point.
Right. So first jobs that need to be done would be find the car keys.
Yep.
In the car. And I'm going to be really laborious on this, but what you had to also make sure we got petrol in the car.
Yep.
Make sure the car was taxed, MOT'd, it was fit for road use. And I'll fast track you a bit more on that. Then you'd have to drive there, find parking, make sure that you might have to pay. So just before you've even got into the store, there's a list of jobs that you need to do. Is that correct, Paul?
Yep.
Right. So then you've got into the physical store, and you've just mentioned that you need 2 forms of ID.
Yep.
But what would happen if you forgot one piece of ID?
Back home again.
There you go. So you have to go back in the car, drive back away, right? And again, if you've got kids, you've got to get childcare, or you might bring them with you. But let's just roll that forward. You then get back to the store. You've got your 2 forms of ID. And I don't know if you can remember, but not every member of staff could actually register you. It was only managers. Do you remember that?
Not really, no. I must have just seen the manager straight away. Yeah. It must have been lucky.
Yeah, so you had to queue. So then what do you then remember next? What you had, when you walked through that store, what was your customer journey going through that store?
You was kind of inundated with everything that they had, really. Everything was there in front of you. There's a lot of choice. Maybe not as much as there would be online.
No, exactly that. But also as well, I don't know if you remember, the blockbuster titles were right at the front of the store, and you had to walk all the way around the store to get the actual blockbuster titles, if you remember.
Yeah, yeah,
And if you got there, let's just play devil's advocate. If you got there and you forgot your 2 forms of ID and had to go back to the store, and then you got there about 9 o'clock at night, you got there late, you wasn't guaranteed to get that blockbuster movie, was you? Because they had limited numbers, didn't they?
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So when you look at the actual value proposition, what that business was trying to generate, most people thought it was the blockbuster title. But what else do you remember? So let's say you got to the store, Iron Man's gone out because you forgot your 2 forms of ID. So you'd end up renting 5 movies for £1 or something, what you never even wanted. But what else do you remember that Blockbuster used to sell inside the store?
They had sweets.
Was the cheap sweets then?
Oh no, oh no. Extortionate priced sweets, drinks. They even used to do games, consoles and games.
Yep.
Accessories. I think that was about it, really.
Posters. I remember they used to have posters, didn't they? So what I'm demonstrating there, a lot of people would enter that store for a blockbuster movie, but that was just the lost leaders to get you in through the store so they could upsell and cross sell you. But when you look at them jobs that you had to do, let's roll it forward. You've rented the movie out, and then you've only taken it out for one night because you didn't want to pay to rent it for 2 nights. You get home, if I'm being really pedantic on the process of this, you got a guarantee you've got a DVD player. If it was back in the time when it was videos, you had to make sure that the videos were around when you took them back. If you remember that, Paul, if you remember that far back.
Yeah. And if you got a DVD back and it was scratched and it skipped all the way through the movie,
yeah, you got charged, or you have to go take it back and argue it wasn't you. And also, if they didn't have the movie you wanted as well, you had to wait, didn't you? Till the following week, right?
Yeah.
And then go for all the rigmarole of taking it back. Now, if you only hide it for one day and you took it back a day late, what happened to you?
I think you got an extra 2 days put on it. It was quite a extortionate late charge.
Yep. So you got fined for the privilege of watching a movie that you just forgot to take back, right? So when you look at that customer journey, when I was just mentioning jobs to be done, what strikes a chord with you on it? What do you think of it?
There's a huge list of things to do just to rent a movie.
Yeah, and then if we link it back to, so if we was drawing a list now, and on one part of the list in one column we'd have jobs to be done. I think we've run out of the list of paper there. With a double-sided one with jobs to be done. If I said what are the gains associated with that product, that's obviously renting the movie and having a good time watching the movie. But then if I said to you, what are the pains associated with that customer? What would you say, Paul?
Just about everything about it.
Right. So when you look at that, in 1997, Reed Hastings looked at that customer journey and he came up with the exact same assumption as what you did, Paul. And he started a movie rental service. In the UK, there was a version of it called Love Film, if you remember, which was
I remember that.
Yeah, remember that one? And when you roll that forward, he approached Blockbuster in 2000 and offered Netflix to buy it for $5 million. And the amazing thing was, what do you think Blockbuster said, Paul?
They said no.
They said no, because they believed people wanted to have the customer experience of going into the store and the theatre and having the movies at home. Now, what Reed Hastings had done in that, his vision for what he was trying to achieve was actually bigger than just mail order. He wanted to have a streaming service so it was available just with an internet connection, but the technology wasn't available, and he kept that in his back pocket. So when you look at that, he'd gone away, self-funded. But if you look at what happens in 2004, which is crazy when you look at it, Blockbuster have reached the peak, so $5 billion. They then choose to enter their own market and do DVD rentals to compete with the likes of Netflix. But when you look at that, it was absolute madness because it was self-cannibalizing their own market share. And there wasn't set up or geared to be as efficient or as effective as what Netflix was, because Netflix had set up with central distribution hubs, used a website for doing all the sign-ups, whereas Blockbuster was very dependent on having stores in towns, sometimes multiple stores in multiple towns, and relying on people walking into the store and physically signing up and getting a physical ID card and actually physically bringing movies back and forth. So a very laborious process, right? You roll that forward and you look at what Netflix had achieved. In 2007, their vision, like I mentioned, was bigger than just mail order. It was about making it available from anywhere on any device. So in 2007, Netflix launched the streaming service and on-demand services. And then the rest is history. In 2010, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. Netflix gone to international expansion. And then Netflix started producing Netflix originals. And they had to pivot and change the business model because, like you just mentioned, Paul, there wasn't enough content out there originally. The market was sort of saturated, so they had to start producing more content for what people were searching for. Also, we know in business that we want to try and make our customer journey as unique as possible. So they used artificial intelligence and machine learning to start doing a profiles feature that started recommending. So for you, Paul, it recommend more movies with the different actors in from the Marvel series, and start serving up different content to get you interested, to keep you in the platform. Roll that forward to 2018, Netflix, it's 250 million total worldwide households on demand. And in 2019, it was reported that they did 20 billion in annual revenue. So when you look at that, and why am I showing you that? What Netflix did was do what's called customer journey mapping. And when you're moving your business to the cloud, one of the most important things I believe you can do is look at your value proposition. So what are your products and services? What gains do they create? And what pains do they solve for the customer? And then look at the customer profile, depending on what different types of customers you have, because you might have different products for different customers, or you might sell one product to one customer and sell it to another customer in a different way. And it's about looking at what gains does that product have and what jobs has that customer got to do, and what does your products, to get that product, and what pains are they associated with it. And then the idea is about mapping your technology to be able to solve that and make it easier across that customer journey. So when we look at that, Netflix used a website that was readily available just to sign up and take credentials. And when you think about that in reality, all the pain that took out that customer's journey is incredible. So any thoughts from me sharing that, Ben? Ben, if you can hear me, if you can put your mic on, it'd be good to have a bit of interaction. If not, you can keep muted. But Paul, I'll call you out again because you've got your mic off. What do you realise from that? Any ideas, any thoughts?
You need to make things as painless as possible for customers, as easy and as simple as possible. Otherwise, they're just going to find somewhere else where it is easier to get the service they want without jumping through hoops.
Yes, I agree with it. The site should be more enjoyable for the customer.
Correct.
More easy. And intuitive, and easy to follow, easy to understand.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and I think it's aligning your technology.
Yes.
Not only, when you look at the Netflix Blockbuster example, it's aligning, and this is why IT managers and business have a huge challenge. It's aligning the technology to the business's goals, but not the business's goals of today, the business goals where it's going to be in 5-10 years' time, which takes a lot of effort and coordination across the team. And what that goes on to sort of link into, which I like to teach a lot about and talk a lot about, is so the common methodology is disrupt or be disrupted. And when innovations threaten to disrupt the industry by replacing an old business model, like you've just seen. So if you look at Netflix, it just completely revolutionized the business model of video rental or video consumption, if you like, and just completely made Blockbuster obsolete. And this key sort of difference between them two sort of businesses really was, although Blockbuster was a massively mature business, there was massively digitally immature. Whereas Netflix, on the other hand, they came onto the market and they was massively immature as a business. There was a fledgling startup, and I will go into that in later on, and we'll do a discussion on that. But they was massively digitally mature. They were so far ahead because they was looking at it from a clean slate, a clean canvas. And it's Google who say, and I'm a huge fan of Google in terms of, they always say that you should think like the man out of the shed. Apple say the same. I think Microsoft quite similar. And what these big tech companies mean by that is they started up out of a garage or a shed, and they believe that their competition will think like they're starting up out of a shed from possibilities, a blank sheet of paper, and they push themselves to always continually think like the man out of the shed. But that's great, conventional wisdom. Gives disrupt or disruptive, but what if an innovation poses a threat and you can't tell whether it's got genuinely transformative potential, right? What are the costs and benefits of self-disruption at an uncertain stage, right? So this is when we're looking at our business models and we're looking at how can we generate more income and be more productive with technology. I've just shown you our website, a sign-up website can do that, centralized distribution. But what if you've got more of a mature business where you are like in a Blockbuster? What could Blockbuster have done to look at changing their model? And the first thing was look at the customer journey. And the second thing, we've been analysed the model in a bit more detail. And that's going back and looking at how much does it cost to adapt to an industry disruption? And there's 4 possibilities, and they depend on 2 factors. So one is how many of your company's existing assets are specific to the traditional business, and how competitive your market is. And when we look at that and we group that up and we look at this scale, on the left hand side we say competitive intensity, so low competitive intensity to high, and then on the bottom it's assets specific to traditional businesses. So again, fewer assets to more assets. So going back to the Netflix versus Blockbuster, Blockbuster had high, there was a high competitive intensity, and a lot of people would say, well, no, they won't. But when you look at it, Paul, how often did you rent a movie out from Blockbuster back in the day? How often?
Maybe once a month, once every couple of months, not that often. There were a couple of other video shops in the town as well, different named ones, smaller ones, that were a lot more competitive on price.
Yeah. And Helen, did you used to rent movies? How often did you rent movies back in the day?
Unfortunately, no. I've got Sky. I don't know if you know. I have a pre channel, and it's an abonnement. I pay every month a tax. It's an abonnement. Excuse me. It's similar at Netflix. It was it's a channel that proposes sport, film, movies, and it's a very general with a lot of channels. And at the beginning, it was on the TV, and with the concurrence of Netflix, it moves his proposal, and you pay. You always pay a tax, an invoice every month. But now you are they allow you to use. They are present on the web. You can enter on a platform. Yes, the business model has grown, and now it's a platform too. I don't know if I'm clear. And the Italian was not at the beginning. But
Helen, you're just breaking up there, Helen. you're just breaking up. So just moving on into this. So to give some other examples of this, where you can look at this. So examples of high cost. So a high cost area is automotive manufacturers. When you look at them, they've got a huge cost, and it's not surprising. This is like a danger zone if you're in that zone. So companies here operate in highly competitive environments, have high stock of assets that they have accumulated to support the traditional business, and they're the ones potentially most threatened to innovation. And ironically, as the figure makes clear, they're also one who pay the highest adjustment cost for disturbing themselves in response to that innovation. So the sort of challenge here, companies that sort of fall into this quadrant are you car manufacturers, like I mentioned, but also other manufacturers. So again, you could argue that Netflix to a point was in here a little bit, or you could maybe say that not Netflix, Blockbusters, maybe one or two, because if you look at the model that Blockbuster had, they had a lot of stock in a lot of towns with multiple movies on multiple shelves, a lot of stock in terms of sweets, goodies, and then on top of that, they had a lot of staff, and it was all waiting for people to come in. Whereas when you look at the Netflix model, it was all supply and demand. So when people ordered, that's when costs started to get incurred, and they could be more agile and efficient on that. Again, when we go look at quadrant 2, these sort of tend to bear relatively high indirect costs because of the greater threat of cannibalization. And this is more like your traditional game developers. And if you look at in this, even games developers now, you just look at the old Epic versus Apple battles, and you're seeing big struggles now where, it used to be Sega and Nintendo was all the main platforms, as you remember. And Paul, was you a gamer back in the day?
Yeah, I was in the Nintendo, man.
Nintendo, what was your favorite game?
Oh, I can't remember the name of it, but it was a racing game, a car racing game.
Yeah.
Oh, it's something like Outrun or something, but I don't think it was Outrun.
I can't remember which one it was. I want to say it was Sub-Zero, which is like a driving game. But I might be wrong with it. That's what I used to like. And I used to just love all the Mario games. So I was man.
Yeah.
But I used to have a Sega Master System with Alex the Kid. I used to like that one as well, and Dungeons and Dragons. But the point I'm making there, though, when you look at these industries, have you noticed these industries getting disrupted now?
Yes, there's a lot of free games with pay for add-ons and pay for costumes and stuff like that. That does seem to be disrupting the games industry a lot, and Microsoft now runs something called
Game Pass, I think it is it?
Yeah, it is. Games Pass Ultimate. I get it, and for £10 a month, you get your Xbox Live. You get loads and loads and loads of games you can play on your Xbox and your PC, and you can stream them from the cloud on your mobile as well. So that's completely disrupted the games industry.
Yeah, exactly that. And again, a lot of people are normally aware, but when you look at the freemium models, a lot of the way the business model, if you take Spotify, for example, I'm sure Spotify's model, they generate their revenue or project their revenue on only 5% of the people on the freemium product actually buying. So when you look at that, they're saying that they're building a massive platform, and 95% of that platform are never going to pay for it, but they will make all their revenues off the 5% that do. And that's completely disrupting the business model. That's not possible without technology. You look at like of Epic Games, for example, complete freemium model, completely disrupted it, but they're making billions by kits and upgrades. It's completely different. I'm in the Google Stadia. I've got a Google Stadia at the minute, right? Just testing on them. £10 a month. I can jump on games, and I've got access to some amazing titles just for £10 a month. I can play at any time, anywhere, on any device, and just pick up where I left off. Just incredible, right? So hugely, competitive market is this.
No one wants to pay £40-50 a game anymore.
No, correct. So then you look at the sort of third sector, and this is companies that sort of tend to bear relatively high indirect costs because they need to develop new assets, lack expertise in implementing the new business. Companies in the satellite TV industry fall into this quadrant. The industry has been dominated by Sky for years, but you've got new entrants of BT and Virgin Media who have prospered without much competition by selling packages of challenge at relatively high prices. Their key assets and stocks and networks of satellites that are very specifically say that exist in business, which is a problem now that you've got companies such as Netflix and Amazon threatening to disrupt the satellite model by offering low-cost video demand packages by the internet. Another great example, which has come out recently. Have you ever heard of DAZN for the boxing? Have you heard of that one, Paul?
No.
So again, this is a new model that's come out, and they charge £1.99 a month, where you can watch all top fight boxing of Canelo, all the boxers from a mobile app, whereas the equivalent package on Sky is £50-60 a month. Again, using cloud technology to completely disrupt that industry, because no longer do they need to have teams of cloud satellites around, because it's just straight off the internet.
Yeah, and the only reason that's allowed that to happen is the technology's moved forward, and the speed of internet now is so fast that you can sustain high definition streaming across it.
Exactly
Whereas
that,
before, you couldn't.
Yeah, exactly, and low latency, everything like that. What 5G brings. So again, so we're seeing, and I'll use these examples to show what big companies, they can't react to the smaller companies. And we look at just how Netflix have started, from a startup to be an absolute empire builder. And then the sort of fourth quadrant is enterprise software developers, like some Microsoft and SAP. And this one are likely to have the lowest cost of all self-disruption, because they operate in markets that they're not especially competitive, and because their key assets can easily be deployed in new places for new purposes. Think of here like enterprise software developers such as Microsoft, SAP, Oracle, who are undergoing the disruptive change to cloud-based software services. These companies have high market share in their specific domains, which means competition isn't a major concern, and many of their key assets in software development, enterprise customer relationship, for example, can easily be adapted to fit new models. Now, a good example of that, where we are seeing new entrants, Google have come up with Google Workspace, and you've also got Facebook. Facebook's got a workplace product, makes it a little bit confusing with Google, but they're looking to dominate. But the key difference, what I'm saying there though, is relevantly a low cost to come into that market, and we're seeing software as a service being spun up all over the place. Different apps, you just have to look on your phone now on that. So then, when you look at this sort of cost and benefits framework, it just gives you a really good understanding where you can sort of see where customers are well positioned. Because if you look at this, for example, where has it gone? So what I've just been trying to teach you there is the difference between innovation and disruption. And we have to innovate and do things a little bit better, but we also have to have a real keen eye on how can we make things that make the old things obsolete, doing new things ultimately. And like I've just tried to demonstrate there, disruptive innovation can hurt you if you're not the one doing it. And how do you think, Paul, Blockbuster feel after what Netflix did to them? Do you think they're hurt?
Yeah, I don't think they're particularly happy.
No, exactly that. Any questions around that, the difference between innovation and disruption? Have I demonstrated that well? Any questions or feedback?
I think our company's the disruptor.
Right, good.
In the industry.
And do you want to educate me a little bit on that in terms of if we take it back to the sort of the value proposition, the customer profile, what is it you guys are doing different?
I mean, normally to design this pipework for the refineries, an engineer would go out with a measure and measure everything, where it's going, where it's from, clearances, which obviously takes a long time, can be inaccurate. We go out with LiDAR scanners and create point clouds, so we know exactly to the millimeter where everything is, and then we can design the pipework to fit in that gap without clashing with any other pipework or anything else that's in the way. So it's completely new to the
sector,
to the industry.
Yeah. And I think what's revolutionary there as well, though, I'm just picking up my mobile phone. It's an iPhone 12. That's got a LiDAR sensor on it. And if anyone's watching and doesn't understand what that does, do you want to educate us, Paul, how that's affected, what that sensor's enabled your business to be able to do?
But basically, it's cut down on the amount of time that's needed to measure, because it's all digitally measured with the LiDAR. We get a complete overview of everything rather than just the point that we're looking at. We get data from all around. So if we do need to say, oh, is that going to be in the way, we don't have to go back out on site and measure it. It's all there in the data, so it saves so much time. It's more accurate, so we can say, yeah, that'll fit, that'll go in there.
And exactly that. And I think what's amazing when you look at that technology is readily available on devices now, and that's how, you know, to disrupt an industry, you know, if you've got the right vision, the right strategy, it's readily available on device that costs no money. People are carrying them in their pockets, you know, and it completely disrupts sectors and industries. That's a great example, Paul. So thanks for sharing that. So let me just get back to where we was. So when we start looking at, you know, just to give some sort of ideas between innovation and disruption, has everyone heard of the Amazon Go, where you can shop without a manual checkout? Have you heard of that one, Paul?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what this is, you walk into Amazon, and what was amazing, they had this before lockdown. So imagine how great this was when lockdown came, when you couldn't have people in stores, you know, protecting your staff. A great way to keep your staff happy, because they just need to stock the back shelves and not actually be in the physical store. But a good example of what they did was took near field technology that's available on mobile phones. You swipe when you go in, and then using clever technology, so camera technology and sensors on the shelves. When a loaf of bread or a sandwich was taken, or a salad, like in this video, was taken off the shelves, it would register, and then when you left the shop, you would automatically be charged. This has been run on trial in London, and across a few other sites. So again, using technology to automate, you know, so again, another competitive advantage, they're able to lower costs and redeploy them assets and people either into sales and marketing or into another value creating center rather than an admin, in terms of, you know, using the customer. You know, how amazing is that, using the customer to actually sell them their own products? You know, amazing. And
in the long run, it's going to be cheaper for them.
Yeah, correct. And then AI now outperforms doctors in diagnosing breast cancer. So no longer they need to look at it. You can just scan images and find images. These other great uses, I don't know if you guys are aware of it, but I use an app. I'm dyslexic, so I do struggle with the written text. And I use an app. I think it's Google Keep, I think it's in. I think it also works in Microsoft. There's a Microsoft version of it as well, where you can take a photograph of any sort of text, and it'll just extract the text out of the documents using AI. You can also use it for automatically measuring things, like you've just mentioned. AI is just coming up in new and wonderful ways to enhance your business. It's used a lot in cloud software now to suggest and recommend content for you if you're for your files. So we use in our business both Microsoft and Google, but we use Google Drive for our files. The reason we use that is AI, we believe, is better in Google Drive, and it recommends and surfaces more files for us. That makes it more relevant for us. Ultimately, what that's doing is saving us time. You know, if it saves us 5 minutes a day, you know, over a week, over a year, over 5 years, that's a lot of time we're getting back. So again, it's making sure that within your cloud strategy, you are thinking about how you can use AI within your strategy. It might be if you're a manufacturer, there's a lot of cloud products, like a cloud vision product where it can spot defects in materials, check for size tolerances, all sorts of different wonderful and wacky ways to be using it. Again, businesses who adopt cloud computing achieve 13.5% increase in revenue per worker, and we're seeing that go up and up and up. And again, part of your strategy for moving your business to the cloud is making sure that we are more profitable per employee. Again, close to 10,000 cyber attacks are committed every day. So again, another part of the strategy that we need to be thinking about. And Paul, you've done a full 3 sessions masterclass with me on this. What would you say when from the sessions you did with me, how did that educate you in terms of the importance of taking cloud security seriously?
Incredibly important. It's probably at the top of the stack.
Yeah. And I think the thing that we have to really be mindful of, and I've got some tools to educate on this a bit further on, but we're creating all this value for our customers and generating, but let's just take the Amazon example, for example. If they didn't take security seriously and people's credit card details was leaked, not many people would go back into that store, would they? So we've got to think about our own customer journey to make sure that we can't be having our customers' data leaked or breached. And then also on the other side of it, let's think of the pipework you're creating, Paul, and the drawings and the digital assets associated with that. You don't want anyone being able to come in and steal your intellectual property, do you?
No.
Pricing data for competition and all things like that, government contracts. So it's something that I can't stress enough. You need to be planning within your strategy, and we recommend 2 straightforward frameworks in terms of Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus. And I can share some more details separate to that, but on the masterclass we will go through that as well. Again, augmented reality is transforming maintenance sector. Have you seen anything on this, Paul?
Yeah, we are delving into the VR and kind of that scene, because within the point clouds and the designs we do, we can actually run in VR, and you can walk through the design and look at it from any angle, which for the customer's point of view is great. They can see exactly where it fits, how it fits.
Yeah, and that's it. An example how we're using it. So we have engineers all over the country, but we've got our senior techs back in Basin Hull, and sometimes on some very complex servers and infrastructure that we have installed, we maybe can't get one of our engineers to the location where it needs to be, or might need to be per set of ladders, and the engineer might not be as young as he once was to be able to get into them, spaces. And so what we're able to do is put glasses on the engineer that's got a camera, and it gives a full HUD-up display to the engineer back at base, but then also are able to comment and tap and draw references on what the live video feed is and feed it back into the engineers so they can see it. So what that allows us to have is more senior techs back at base, and you can have more junior techs or maybe haven't got them skills, but the advantage of that is they're actually getting shadowed and educated by a more senior tech from like an apprenticeship, if you like, but they're getting them skills where traditionally them skills might have been lost because the engineer who might not be able to get to them locations, might not be able to drive, loads of different factors, can actually still pass that knowledge on across the business, so we're not losing that knowledge. And I didn't know, have you heard of them glasses, Paul, what you can use?
Yeah, we are actually looking into some at the moment. I can't remember what they're called, but they've got a camera on them, and they've actually got a little, I think it's a 4-inch or 3-inch display just under the right hand eye that they can look down into and see. It's like, I think it says it's like it's having a full screen TV on the wall, basically.
Exactly that. But then we're also seeing augmented reality as well in terms of full VR. So there's a commercial, not a commercial, there's a consumer grade product called by Facebook called the Oculus, I think it's called. We've got Rift. Yeah, that's it. That's the one. I don't know. Have you been on one, Paul?
No, but I do have a HTC Vive, which is actually supposed to be better than an Oculus.
All right, okay. So I don't normally get that excited by technology because I'm in it every day, and I like technology. Don't get me wrong, but there's always something. But the Facebook Oculus absolutely blew me away in terms of it was completely amazing. I was in a training environment. I climbed some steps. I felt like I was going to fall off the ladder. I actually felt scared. You know, it was amazing. And the use cases of training people, they're using it in surgery locations. The endless possibilities just are crazy of how that can be used. But we're also seeing that come into play with the likes of IKEA. I don't know if you've ever been to IKEA lately, but you can actually bring IKEA to your home just for the app. So you can actually check if you've got the latest LiDAR sensors, if a sofa will actually fit through your door, how it'll fit into your living room. So again, we're seeing new and unique ways of that happening to really get that, you know, bring the image of that product to home, you know, for your customer. Again, over 100,000 legal roles are going to be automated. Also as well, jobs that are predicted not to exist in the future. Like I just mentioned, retail cashier, like we just seen in the Amazon store, postal workers, travel agents, referees, which is debatable because I think referees make it fun, is what I would say. Print journalists, drivers, and assembly line workers. And when you look at that, jobs that don't exist now, but will. So AI-assisted healthcare technician. I mean, that just blows my mind thinking of that. Personal memory creator, augmented reality journey builder, highway controller, and 3D printer chef, which is just
I'm a 3D
just
printer chef.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think we'd all like one of them, wouldn't we? What would you print on it food-wise, Paul?
No, I've got 4 3D printers myself actually, and
Yep.
I print quite a few things. You can actually print chocolate with a bit of a modification.
Right. Okay. But again, what, you know, when you look at that list there, what's your initial sort of thoughts, Paul?
Yeah, that's just the way the world's going.
Yeah. So as businesses, we need to be able to adapt to them jobs and them industries, because we might need some of these skills in our organisation. But in order to do that, we need to make sure we've got the technology that are going to service them. So little exercise I want to go through something called modes, and this is a great little exercise to run through when you are planning what to do, you know, with the business. And it's a great exercise to go through with the leadership team and ask the questions of where the business is heading. So what is a mode? So a mode is the successful outcome you're looking for. So the mode combines how you define success, manage your service delivery or your products and services, your lead times, and how you build your business systems and develop your partnership. A mode also reflects a way a business thinks and acts, and it's qualitative, quantitative, and more than an unchanging label. So, and again, company owners can change modes over time and experience depending on the different needs. And modes are not determined by maturity or size. Instead, different modes exhibit different maturity levels or operating maturity levels across a range of different business performances. So if we look at these modes, we have startup. So the startup journey sort of travels from the beginning until you reach a point which defines what you want your company to become. There's several small steps to take along the way, but you are moving from accidental or intentional entrepreneur to creating a business and putting in place the necessary people, process, and outcomes that allow you to begin to consider what your long-term growth perspective and outcome is going to be. Then we have what we call balance builder mode. So balance builder is the type of company that wants success, but chooses not to trade the owner's sort of personal lifestyle to achieve financial success as a priority. And what we've got to sort of think about on that is the balance builder is about finding the right clients at the right level of profitability so they can manage the business in a way so it'll drive their personal desire for lifestyle, family, and things that are value important to the business owner at that time. Owners are willing to manage the balance of the business so they have success in both areas, but not trading one for the other. So think of that like more of a bit of a lifestyle business in that sort of mode. Then we have what I call value builder. And the value builder is focused on sort of creating consistent increase in value over time. It's a growth-based business, but it's run on profitability in mind first, and a focused commitment to intentionally to creating consistent up to the right sort of growth. So always trying to grow and add value across that customer journey. And then we have what we call empire builder. So the empire builder is about putting the value builder on steroids, basically. So the empire builder is about, if we look at growth and we look at like a hockey stick, it's like taking a growth like an absolute hockey stick rather than a more balanced approach to growth. And the idea is it's trading time and resources today with the intent of a window of giving up control to get somewhere fast and take advantage of the opportunity. It requires a lot of external funding, commitment, and following a very disciplined plan. It takes disciplined leadership, and much of an empire builder is driven by the desire to completely dominate the marketplace and the sector. And then we've got to start thinking about the exit sort of transition or the next chapter. So understanding what sort of mode the business is in. So just look at that, Paul, when you look at your business that you're in, where would you say you guys are in? Are you in startup mode? Are you in a balance builder mode? Are you trying to look at consistent, steady growth and value? Or are you looking to build an empire? What would you say that business is focused on?
I think we're probably in startup mode at the moment, going on to empire building.
Yeah, very fast, right? Okay. But the reason I asked that question is because the growth strategy is completely different for these different organizations, right? And it's not that one's better than the other. It all depends on, the mindset of the business owner or the directors or the shareholders of what they want to achieve. And sort of key questions you need to be asking are, what's your destination? What is the mission you're on? What does the end point look like? So, and what you got to start thinking there is think where. We know where you're heading, and to get to where you're heading, there needs to be an exit number or and know what impact you're trying to complete with with complete clarity. And it might be more a larger business. It might not necessarily you're going to exit the business, but it might be that the business is going to they're going to bring another director in. What does that look like in 5, 10, 15 years? What is the exit strategy? What is the growth of the business look like? Where's it going to go? What's it going to look like? Then we need to look at what's your journey. So what is the company's vision or description of how you're going to get there? So, and what you got to sort of think there is think how, and this is how you're going to get to your destination. This is where the modes come in. So what are you trying to do? Is it disciplined saving over time, or are you looking to create enterprise value and dealing with a transition in the future, or are you using external money to build your destination quickly? So like you just mentioned there, Paul, yeah, you're in startup, but you're going to be jumping into empire builder. So the budgets and everything associated to that are completely different. Does that give you any food for thought at all, going through them two sort of things?
Not really, no.
And then what's on your horizon? So how long do you have to get there, and what are the milestones? And what we've got to sort of think when. So, and this is how much time do you have? And the worrying fact is time is what we always underestimate the most. So many businesses fail to understand the impact of the decisions. And 2 years before an exit, an acquisition, or is not going to work if you're going to start buying up other companies or other things. It's really planning where the business is going. But what can happen, we're just on the back of, and I don't want to speak too much on this, but I want to cover it because I think it's really important when we look at the different modes and where we're heading and looking at our business models. If you look at the impacts what COVID has had or is having, and you look at the business model and you go into it, is sort of direct impacts, a drop in demand and ability to conduct business was absolutely inhibited. So direct impact we had was profitability, liquidity, credit quality, and workforce and supply chain. And when you look at the indirect impacts, financial markets, prices, idle capacity, shifts in demand, and longer term impacts, digital infrastructure, flexible working models, increased uncertainty, changes in business models, right? So all of a sudden, you know, businesses need to be looking at these things because this is what COVID's forced us to do. But prior to COVID, I'd have been asking people to look at the business model outside of that. And have you heard of the business model canvas, Paul, before?
No.
No. So this has been adapted from the business model canvas. And when we do the masterclasses, this is something we would go through in more detail. But again, what we would look at the business and we'd take a sort of bird's eye view out of the business and we'd be asking, you know, what's the vision? You know, is the vision big enough? What are your goals? Are people motivated to achieve the vision? And what are the sort of stretching goals? We then look at why you know, is that value proposition you're talking about strong enough, you know, and how are you different, and will people pay more for your services, or, you know, and how can you disrupt that business model? So you've already mentioned, Paul, in yours, why you, you're able to get extremely accurate measurements, aren't you?
Yeah.
You should be able to be extremely reactive because you're measuring it in a computer device, digitizing it. So you should be more reactive. So your lead time should be quicker. So you should be able to service your customers quicker. Educate me some more on why people should be choosing your company over others.
Cutting edge, basically, we offer services that other people don't offer. We can offer verification services. So if someone has created a part that's going to go in somewhere, we can go and scan where it's going to fit. We can go and scan the part and say, yes, that's going to fit, or no, it's you've buggered it.
Yeah, exactly that. And then we look at customer segments and what's the customer experience like, channels to market as well are covered in there. And then we look at, are your markets growing? What's your experience? What's the sector, the geography in there? And then look at the products. Does the model release any intellectual property value? Is the customer lock-in? Is it disruptive? Key people, critical skills, key partners. Look at your revenue streams, cash position, cost structure, core processes and key technology, and how all that integrates into your critical suppliers. It's a fantastic tool to use and map out a business to understand how we can then start aligning the technology to these goals and these impacts. And a good example is a Metro Mile tag. So I thought I'd just show. So they did value delivery. So it's a sensor attached to a car to monitor the number of miles travelled. Customers have to have an app to monitor their usage and insurance cost. The app provides a car locator and driving start information. Metro Mile Plus now providing predictive maintenance info for measuring a car's health. Value capture, low monthly payment for each mile travelled. Metro Mile Plus links to Metro, like mile mechanics. And value creation, it manages and reduces insurance costs. Never lose your car in a car park, and you get peace of mind that your car's being monitored for reliability. So that's just an example of how, you know, something can be disrupted. And it disrupts traditional car insurance providers, garages and mechanics. A complete different way of delivering that. Have you heard of that product before, Paul?
Yeah, we got some insurance for our car not long ago, and I think it was Hastings we got it through, and they sent out a black box, and I was like, you can cancel that and send the bloody thing back.
You're no good on your ST, that was the new turbo.
No good me driving at all. I've got a lead foot, mate.
Yeah. So I've tried to educate on the difference between disruption and the innovation. And where I'm going to start heading more on now as well, and it's something that what we have to think about is there's three components I believe that when you're looking to transform a business, the right people, the right process, the right technology. But the chokehold always is either the owner of the business or the actual leadership team in terms of where they perceive where they're going. And it all boils down for me down to culture. And again, another quote, I'm a huge fan of Peter F. Drucker. And here's a quote where he says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And we often sort of don't really think too much about strategy, about culture in business and linking it into tech. But if we haven't got everyone on board, when we, a lot of technology projects or digital transformation projects fail. And the reason for that is they don't align the people, the process, the technology. They're coming at the bottom level and they say, right, we're going to get this new piece of technology that's going to change everything. But the people aren't on board and the processes aren't predefined. So all of a sudden what you get is this absolute mess where the people don't know the process and the technology is just making things even worse. So we really have to have a cultural shift around your values, so that your values and your culture can eat the strategy. If everyone's aligned, it works. And when we look at that, I believe to have a breakthrough sort of cloud culture so that you can start being disruptive is tactics and strategy sit on top. So I can tell you what technology going to use today, but if you haven't got the culture right and you deeply don't understand this, the best way I can describe culture is like fish, like water is to a fish. And you only understand how important culture is when you're no longer, are in the water. So if a fish is taken out of water, it understands that water is massively important to it. And that is exactly the same as culture. If you haven't got any and you try and run a massive cloud project, or you start trying to go from startup to empire builder, you've got to really have this aligned. And there's a great sort of framework. It's called the Re-Engineering Alternative by William Shender. And he defines culture as how we do things around here. And there's a great little model, and you can do this as an exercise where you can score yourself on a scale across these areas. And they're sort of interlinked. So if we look at this, if we look at cultivation in this bottom left-hand corner, we succeed by growing people who fulfill our vision, right? And let's think evolve, and it's all about dedication, creativity, and subjectivity, purpose, faith, and growing, right? So if we look at this box here, and these are very people orientated and possibility focused. So if we started right down in the bottom, where it says let things evolve on screen, we couldn't have control at the same time. Them two sectors are sort of covered together, they're sort of interlinked. The same as competence and collaboration are linked. But a great example is if we take Apple, when Apple was first founded by Steve Jobs and Wozniak, there was a cultivation culture. They started out with a garage shed. They succeeded by fulfilling their own vision, creating things that they wanted to create themselves. And they had purpose and faith to let things evolve, very creative. But roll that forward to Apple of today, they're a massive control organization. They have separate business units working on separate things, and they don't necessarily collaborate at that point. And they succeed by getting and keeping control. You only have to look at what they're doing with the likes of the big arguments they're having with Facebook about data security and privacy. They're just as bad as Facebook and Google and everybody else, because they've got everyone else's data, tracking what they do, tracking what everything they're doing. You look at the App Store, where they're taking a massive cut from all the developers. Everything is all about power, predictability, process, and that's why the most profitable company on the planet. Same as your Microsoft, same as your Google's. So it's understanding that we can have control, but we still need to also focus on cultivation. And then we roll into the likes of competence. So we succeed by being the best: efficiency, professionalism, craftsmanship, expertise, creativity. And you see a lot of colleges and universities fit into this sort of box. And then in the top left-hand box, this is collaboration. We succeed by working together. So partnership, teams, people, trust, diversity. Now, one of the key challenges we have when we put a piece of technology in, we naturally become more collaborative. So from a security point of view, Paul, from the work we've been doing in the previous masterclasses, you've got some fantastic collaborative technology available there. But from a control point of view, for you managing the tech, what does that present you with?
Headache.
Okay, right. Okay. So for every decision we make, there's an impact across this, and it's about setting your organization. Where do you want to be? Because we have to have security. We want the ideal fit is we're balanced across all of these, but naturally we will gravitate towards different sectors and different areas. And when you look at that, what's your focus? So for me, culture needs to start around what do we want to be, and what's our vision of how we're going to get there. Reverse engineer it. When we look at the Netflix model, We want to be able to deliver content to anybody, anywhere, anytime on any device. And then we work it back. What do we want to achieve? What's our customer focus? What's our long-term thinking? And then we bring it back down to the granular level, the micro level, the tactics. How do we work now? What's our current processes? And how can we change them around? And again, we can't underestimate the power of process re-engineering. And this is what, when we move to the cloud, we get to do. Edwin Deming, one of the famous practitioners in process re-engineering, speaks about, do you remember going to the bank, Paul, to get some money out of the cash machine back in the day? We don't do it as much as we used to. But did you ever walk away leaving your bank card in the machine years ago?
No, but I've left it in a pin pad machine in London before.
So many moons ago, I don't remember the process, but when you mapped out the process of getting cash out of a cash machine, the way it used to work was you would put your card in, you would enter your PIN number, and then it would give you the cash. And then after you've taken the cash, it'd give you your card back. But what a lot of people used to do on a busy Friday night or a Saturday night when they'd be out drinking or they're just in a rush, they would take the cash and leave the card. Now that presented a massive problem to the banks, because what that would do is it would stop people being able to spend. So they couldn't spend the money. So, they want as much money going out, and they want money going out, different transactions, you get paid by the transactions, don't they? But on top of that as well, it was costing them an absolute fortune, because reproducing cards, postage fees, sending them out to customers, unhappy customers.
I was going to say, don't it give you your card back before you cash now?
It does now, but it never used to. What the banks did, they did exactly what we'd be doing when we look at moving to the cloud. Looked at the customer journey, mapped it out, and realised that step 1, put your card in. Step 2, put your PIN number in. Step 3, select how much money you want. Step 4, take your cash. Step 5, take your card. They just changed around, take the card out first before you got the cash. All they did, just change one move, right? One digital move, right? And that one digital move saved them absolute, millions and millions and millions, right? Also made the customers happy, and just by looking at the processes, right? But ultimately, there was already a digital business, how they're really focused, but we need to really deeply look at our work practices to see and continually improve them work practices, so we can make them simple moves that have the big difference. And the age-old thing is, if we can look to try and be 1% better across 100 areas of the business, we'll be 100% better across the entire business rather than just 100% better in one area. And it's about having that focused, continual improvement thinking. So just link on to that. So where am I going now? So just to sort of recap on that, then. So how do we bring this together in terms of implementing this within a business? So mission, transform the way we work with the cloud. Vision, work faster, smarter, together, anywhere, anytime, on any device. And again, you can be more specific on this around your own niches, but this just gives you a guide about how that's done. And then goals, we need sponsorship. We need to analyse the market, the sector, the customer journey. We need to have great comms with our staff and great training, take feedback, bring them on the journey with us. And then strategy, the strategy to get people to go to the cloud is we need to make it exciting. We need to enable everybody, engage everybody, and then we need to deeply embed the training and make that continual learning, going on. And culture, and why I say it's so important is on the ground influencers, and it's bottom up. We deliver it bottom up, and what I mean by that is the values, beliefs, and behaviours that steer people's actions. The what, how, why is this technology going to be valuable to our clients? That's how we drive that change up. And we always see it being trying to driven from the top. It actually comes down to why do we exist? What are we doing it for? What's the purpose of what we're doing? What, how, and why, and is it valuable to our customers? So I'm going to give you an example in this sort of last sort of 15 minutes I think I've got. So hopefully it just works out right in time. So linking into what we will cover more in the sessions, in the full masterclass, we'll look to discover what your business is, like at the moment, what you're doing and how that's working. Then we'll look to sort of design different solutions that potentially could work within your model, and then leave it so you can decide, how that would impact. And the way if I do an example, so this is from a great scheme, which I will be talking about at the end, called Digital Catalyst, which is going to be looking to come back out, where we map the business out across sort of 5 areas, five drivers. So values of leadership, strategy and culture. We then look at customer attraction, retention and growth. So how you get work, on there. Value creation, so the customer value proposition and customer experience. And then value delivery. So what's the learning, development and collaborative process across the organization? And then underpinning everything is data security and compliance. And what we'd look to do, and this is so important that you look at the business like this, is think that the top part, the value drivers, that's the strategy, the leadership of how you're going to get there, the vision, the mission, like we've just been mentioning. And then we break the business down in sort of 3 areas, really. Your value capture is, in my world, is how we get work, your sales and marketing. Your value creation is how you deliver that fantastic value once you've won that contract. So like you're mentioning, Paul, using like a LiDAR enabled devices to measure more accurately. The way Netflix used a website to have customers sign in, make it a lot easier. And then your value delivery is how do we train our staff and how do we onboard our staff so that they can start delivering that value from day one? Because a lot of businesses are shadowing staff, aren't they? And it's not it needs to be digitally transformed. And then exactly like we mentioned, Paul, and the security masterclasses we was working on, making sure that all this great value that we've captured, we're creating and we're delivering is protected. And the way we do that is with customer journey map and experience design. So we look at the customer journey, we look at the experience, and we look at all the digital touch points and look at all the physical touch points. And we look at areas that we can use technology to digitize them physical touch points. We also look at areas where we can automate existing digital touch points. And then we look at a cyber essentials checklist and financial management as well, which underpins everything as well. So I'm going to give you a sort of real world sort of example around the digital catalyst, which I will be talking more about in a couple more slides. But I thought if I give you a real world example of this was some diagnostics that we took part in when we first got involved, before we got involved in the scheme. And we scored ourselves from our maturity levels from 1 being not very mature to 4 being mature, across value drivers, value delivery, value creation, value capture and value protection. And when we did this many moons ago, we wasn't that strong in sales and marketing, and our value creation wasn't that strong. Now we're Cyber Essentials Plus certified and ex-practitioners, and we also get external. So it's nice to know that we are high on value protection. But again, with cybersecurity, you can never have enough. No matter how much budget we've got, we can never have enough. So there's still always room for improvement as we've seen it. So when we was looking at this, we was looking at how can we generate more value for our customers and also be able to capture more value, from a sales and marketing point perspective as well. And how can we use technology across our entire customer journey when we look at it like that across all these areas to do that? So what we did was we had a goal. And this is a main goal, we want to be more productive and more profitable. And this is from the ICT for Growth Regional Development Fund. Businesses who effectively adopt digital technology typically grow 30% faster and are 20% more profitable. So we're scaling, we're growing, very, very quick at the moment. And what we did was we thought, we need to rethink digital readiness. And we needed to, lockdown came. So when we look at our business model, we wasn't able to do our traditional training from a classroom learning environment. We wasn't able to bring people in. Our trainers weren't able to go on site. We couldn't support our end users in the traditional way when COVID struck, right? And we was already thinking about how we could reinvent our business model anyway. So that what we looked at was the traditional way of raising IT support tickets within a business was send an email in or ring support. And we thought, well, from a customer journey, that's not different. It's not really a wow. How can we be different? So we developed an app, and what was different on the app, it provided within 3 clicks, it's available on everyone's device, even on mobile devices. They could raise a ticket really quickly, but it did something really key. It increased productivity when we're raising a ticket by 50%. And the reason for that was we was able to take a lot of systems information. And Paul, you'll have this. You're from a support background. Trying to capture information from an end user when they've got a problem. How easy or difficult is it, Paul?
I've got a quote that I can give you. Where is it? I found
it's getting recorded, so I hope it's polite.
Yeah, it is. PNGs, where is it? It's that picture that I was on about. Right, here we go. It is technical support. We do precision guesswork based on unreliable data provided by those of questionable knowledge.
That's it. And I think, no, but you sum that up well. You have to email me that, Paul, because it's a great point that in terms of our users, when we look at their customer journey, they've got a problem with the computer. That's why they're reaching out to us, or they might want some extra skills, or they've got a problem, right? So in their time of need, they don't need a load more extra complexity, understanding what computer they've got, what the name of the computer is, what the domain it's on, what applications are installed on it, what time it happened, what processing power it's got, what RAMs it got, all these, what graphics card, all these extra bits. So we developed an application with a piece of software that we have installed on the device that captures all that information for that user at a click of a button. So we know what time it happened, what was going on in the background, and we get a load of specific targeting information that our engineers need to be able to fix it. We also make it easy so they can record the screen, they can take photographs. There's a whole array of different things they can use it for. But then when we really started looking at the customer journey and saying, well, how can we wow the customer with this? We believe that all of our customers need to be able to use the technology better because it changes daily, weekly, monthly, it's every minute sometimes. So we wanted to develop what we call a Cloud Academy. And the Cloud Academy was, we thought, well, what would happen if we could give all of our users training on Microsoft or Google as the core line of business applications? Fundamentally, we also specialize in some other software as well, but the core productivity stacks, Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace. So that's what we focused on. We then built a Cloud Academy, and any customer has support from us are able to link into it and sign up from here. But on top of that, from a marketing perspective, we have a podcast, we're sharing news articles, different products and services. We're able to also publicize that within here. And then also making it easy for the customer, customize this My Apps panel around different applications that they use. So in my business, we use Google, but if it's Microsoft, we can put use to Outlook, Word, PowerPoint, things like that, and customize this area. So when a new member of staff starts in that business, they have our IT app on there, and they've got access to the call line of business apps. They've got access to raise tickets, talk to our help desk, and also from a security point of view that we've just rolled out on innovation, is we work off zero trust. So if you put a ticket in with us, Paul, we won't trust it's you. So we use this application to send a two-step verification to you, to give us a code so we know it's you. So we're integrating that into it. And then another thing, so I mentioned access to certified e-learning. So you've got access to learning courses within the product. We're also able to spin these up and actually charge externally. So we've been selling these courses to customers who are traditionally not customers ours, but they're still doing their learning courses from our academy. And when we looked at that model, now we've got an online e-learning platform. When we're doing digital transformation, all the customers are able to get trained at their own time, their own pace. It's less disruptive. So they don't, rather than having a full business having to come into the training, on different days, they can do it in 5-minute chunks, 10-minute chunks, and ultimately learn from anywhere. Because you can learn from home, learn on the train, on the bus, on any device at any time. So I just wanted to sort of use that in terms of how we've disrupted our sort of business model and use technology to sort of add value across the customer journey. And on the sort of masterclasses, that's what we will be sort of covering, of how you could use technology to change your customer journey. Any questions from what I've covered today? Any questions for anyone, Paul?
Not that I can think of, no.
And I think just sort of sum up, wrap up, and before everyone goes, I am going to be mentioning more about the digital catalyst. So firstly, thanks for attending. We've got through an hour and a half, just in the sort of final 4 minutes. But next sort of event, so we've got a webinar, so Fundamentals of Internet of Things on the 8th of September at 1 p.m. You can sign up to attend in the free masterclass series. And then also we've got Increase Your Sales for a Powerful Digital Marketing Strategy. And then we've also got Moving Your Business to the Cloud with me. I'll be running that one. And you can go there to register. And then just a little bit more about the digital catalyst that's going to be getting reopened. So the framework where I showed you the 5 drivers, that's off the Winning Moves framework, which is a fantastic framework developed to help you map your technology out. And the overview, what happens is there's a digital assessment where you get a maturity level, and review your technology adoption and your business performance and future aspirations. Then you get expert support, so prioritization through a dialogue and a digital design sprint. And then you can specify needs, including technology selection and competence of adoption and procurement process. And then the output is a digital action plan, brokerage. We can help you with brokerage of who you need to speak to get the different services, and then technology provider selection. And I'm one of the specialists who work and conduct, with Think Cloud, we work on the digital catalyst scheme. So examples of projects, which is far from exhaustive. So digital marketing and social media support, move your operations to the cloud, consolidate technology infrastructure, tools and applications to increase productivity, introduction to e-commerce, cybersecurity, like we've mentioned, Paul, like you've done with me already, online accounting, implementing customer relationship management, and like the application that we developed and we're working with, that came out of using that sort of framework. Digital catalyst in a nutshell. So bespoke, impartial one-to-one support for businesses from expert technology specialists like myself, assistance with any aspects of digital technology adoption, including working more effectively and efficiently, developing new products and services, enhancing your customer offering, winning more work with existing and new clients, and attracting and retaining staff, or keeping safe and effective with security systems. Brokerage, like I mentioned, for further support and grants and funding, and hand-holding to get yourselves started. And a shortcut to the right solutions for your business. And lastly, become better at purchasing IT services. Because I think it's the fundamental problem I see, and we support a lot of organisations. A lot of organisations buy what the IT provider want them to buy because what they use, not what's right for the business. So eligibility, it's exclusive to the Humber area. You need to be a small and medium-sized enterprise with less than 250 employees, less than 250 million turnover, with a balance sheet less than 43 million, must actively be trading for a minimum of 1 year, and there is some sector restrictions which apply, but if you apply, we can go through that, and subject to acceptance by the LEP business and investment team. So to find out more about that, you can call them on 01482 686 700, or you can email digitalcatalyst@winningmoves.com, or you can check out Grow My SME ICT /digital catalyst. So that's, again, this sort of taste session was, we're doing a masterclass session on moving to the cloud, but then and some of the techniques that what are used within the catalyst are used within there, but the catalyst scheme is also an additional, it's a fantastic resource where you can look at your business model and you get dedicated up to 12 hours support from a specialist, which is fantastic to help you. So any questions, any further questions from anybody? I'll just check the chat in case any questions in the chat. No, so that's been brilliant. So I just want to thank everyone for attending this taster taster masterclass that's going to be coming up, and look forward to seeing everyone soon. Thank you.